Well, hello there, I'm Chris from TechSpert, and today we're going to be checking out the Infinix Zero 20, a budget-friendly blower built for selfie fans, packing a 60 megapixel front-facing camera with optical image stabilization and dedicated night tools. So hopefully you'll be able to get some hot Instagram action on the go when you're hanging in the club, or indeed when you're sat in a dark studio at 2 AM hunched over a laptop editing video after far too much coffee and far too little sleep. Hashtag living my best life. So let's whip the Infinix Zero 20 on out of that box, test out the camera tech, the gaming chops, all the best bits. And for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers. So first, what do you actually get in the box besides the Zero 20? Well, I'm glad you asked, because you get one Infinix 45 watt power adapter, a good bit of USB cable, you've got some bundled earphones, and they are actually the 3.5mm variety, because hey, the Infinix Zero 20 actually has a headphone jack. And if it's protection you're after, well, good news, you get not only a bundled screen protector, but also a condom case to wrap around your Zero 20. Make sure it doesn't get all dinked up. And you've also got an invitation to join the X Club, which sounds a bit porny, but it's just Infinix's loyalty scheme, basically. And that is it, everything you'll find inside the box, so let's crack on with the fun. Now, the Infinix Zero 20 packs quite a familiar design for 2022. It seems like these flat-edge smartphones are all the rage these days. I've also heard this design referred to as slap edge, and that's probably because whoever actually came up with it deserves a slap. Some people really like the whole iPhone style flat edging, but I just don't find it particularly comfortable to clutch, especially when you're dealing with a smartphone as big as this at 6.7 inches. So it's already a proper hand filler, and just some curves to make it more comfortable to clutch would have been very much appreciated. And not only is the Infinix Zero 20 a 6.7 incher, but also, as you can see, they're fairly chunky bezels surrounding that display. So certainly quite a girthy wee beastie. And you've probably noticed by now the proper old school nipple notch up top for the selfie cam, rather than the more popular selfie cam sphincter cutout. And this Infinix blower has a good old heft to it as well. It's just a gnat's bollock under 200 grams. And that's despite the fact that both the frame and the back end appear to be constructed from plastic. But what a back end. Check out that color scheme. This is the glitter gold model, although you can also grab the Zero 20 in space gray or green fantasy. Sounds like some sort of Captain Kirk alien love fest. But I really like this model. I love how it kind of morphs from orange to a kind of a bluey greeny hue, depending on how the light is striking it. You'll just have to excuse this bit of residue around back here. There was a sticker on the back end of the Infinix Zero 20 when I got it, and of course when I peeled it off, I left all this shit on there. I did give it a good old hearty scrub for about 5 minutes, but still didn't manage to shift it all. But yeah, at least they haven't ruined that back end with lots of branding or anything, just a subtle little logo tucked away in that corner there. And then you do have a reasonably chunky camera chassis there, which juts quite a bit out of the rear end. So yeah, this smartphone could certainly be described as thick. Now, on the software front, what you have here is Android 12 with a good bit of XOS version 12 slapped on top. And this does change up the vibe of Android quite considerably, so you do still have staples like the apps tray right there. You can drag down the notifications from the left side of the screen, but on the right side, you drag down the control center instead, MIUI style. And if you swipe this away, there's no Google Discover feed. Instead, it's basically a page of widgets which you can fully customize. This shows you how much of your precious existence you're wasting on games and social media and such forth. You've got tips and tricks to use your phone. And then if we dive on into the Infinix Zero 20's settings, quite a lot of different stuff tucked away in here as well. So you can go to personalization. You can change up the wallpaper as usual. We do have a variety of live wallpapers you can play about with. Lots of planet shenanigans going on there. You can set up an always on display. I get the feeling the dudes at Infinix really like a bit of space action. But yeah, you've got some quite jazzy affairs you can set up if you want. Only problem is it doesn't appear to actually be a proper always on display, because after just a few seconds, off it f***s. And so then you've got to bring it back by tapping or shaking the phone. But even though Infinix has tinkered quite a bit with Android, you've still got a lot of the best bits of Android 12 tucked away in there, including the excellent privacy dashboard shenanigans. You can quickly and easily see if any of your apps are using any bits that they shouldn't and lock down those permissions. You've also got a one-handed mode, thank God, because this phone is roughly the size of Bournemouth. Unfortunately, like many phones of its ilk, the Infinix Zero 20 does have a fair bit of crapware packed on here that you'll want to try and get rid of. Although quite a lot of it seems impossible to uninstall, which is a real shame. Like, cool, okay, no idea what it is, can't get rid of it, boo. Same goes for the likes of Wow FM, and then of course you've got Infinix's own apps like X Club, X Arena. So you'll either have to live with them or dispose of them by other means, but at least you've got 128 or 256 gigs of storage space on here. So plenty of space for your apps, media and other shenanigans, and that's also expandable via micro SD, courtesy of this nifty double-sided SIM tray. As you can see, you can actually stick 2 SIMs in the opposite side. Of course, another big question is how many years of OS and security updates will the Infinix Zero 20 get? Unfortunately, Infinix hasn't explicitly stated that one, but I wouldn't expect more than 1 or 2 years. Unfortunately, it tends to be quite limited. As for security, well, this super skinny edge-mounted power button also doubles up as a fingerprint sensor, and so far TouchWood seems very responsive and reliable. Quite impressed by it. Struggles a bit when your hands are damp, but apart from that, no buggering about. And on top of this, you've also got face unlock as well, so if your fingers are a bit moist, just give that power button a tap, and that front-facing camera will recognize you and let you in. Now, the Infinix Zero 20 rocks a mighty 6.7-inch AMOLED display, and I usually like to show off a smartphone screen by streaming a good bit of Disney Plus or Netflix. Unfortunately, when I tried streaming anything on those apps, it completely buggered them up. So you just stuck with a good bit of this bald twat instead. Or hey, how about a fellow baldy who's superior in pretty much every other way, good old Mr. Rock. Now I'm pretty sure the streaming bug is just down to the fact that it's early software here on the Infinix Zero 20. It's pre-release right now, so hopefully by the time this smartphone actually hits stores, that little bug will be well and truly squashed. But anyhow, this display will easily rival most mid-range mobiles, packing poppy colours, sharp contrast. You've got full HD plus resolution as well, so nice crisp detail-packed visuals. You've got wide viewing angles and a nice strong maximum brightness as well to see what is going on even when you step outside and it's a wee bit sunny. One of the only real issues is that nipple notch, which does stick its way in a bit when you go full screen, watching a bit of video or playing a game or what have you. Thankfully, it's nowhere near as offensive as the likes of Apple's notches, of course, so not too terrible. And in the display settings, you can play around with the actual color output, got the usual blue light filters, etc. And you can actually play around with the refresh rate as well, which is set to dynamically switch between 60 and 90 Hz, depending on what you're up to. But you can bump it up to 90 Hz full time if you fancy it. And the Infinix Zero 20 also boasts a stereo speaker setup, but is it actually any good? Let's see.
And if you're not a fan of bezels, well, great news, there's practically bugger all of any of that stuff here on the Edge. That black back end may look a little bland compared with some more jazzy rivals, but it feels nice with its soft touch finish.
Well, if you pump the volume all the way up to the maximum levels, certainly it's got a bit of a kick to it, that's for sure. It can't be described as quiet or muffled or anything like that, but the audio is quite tinny, but at least it is a stereo style effect. That bottom speaker isn't pulling most of the weight like it does on some smartphones. And yes, indeed, you do have that headphone jack as well as full Bluetooth streaming support as well if you want to go wireless. So let's have a shufty at the performance. And the Infinix Zero 20 is powered by MediaTek's Helio G99 chipset, backed here by 8 gigs of RAM. And so far, touch wood, the everyday running seems pretty smooth. Apps load up when you tap them, no hanging around. The animations are about as smooth as you would expect. And apps do tend to linger in the background as well. They don't immediately shut down once you stop using them to free up memory. And for any benchmarking fans out there, as you can see, not the most enormous scores in the world on the Geekbenches. Certainly the single core is fairly limited, but the multi-core is pretty decent. And if you are a game fan, there is a gaming mode as well. So when you load up a game, you'll notice this little bar pop up at the bottom here. And this just shows that the Zero 20 is dedicating as much of its resources as possible to your game. CPU, GPU, network connection, all that shenanigans. And I was impressed by the gaming experience here on the Infinix Zero 20 as well. The likes of Call of Duty, more than playable. That display is completely flat and responsive enough to keep you competitive as well. Every pocket swipe instantly recognized. I didn't notice any sudden drops in the frame rate or anything. The action remained fluid, and I actually managed to get quite a few kills in, even though ultimately we were annihilated. And so, spurred on by this excellent performance, I decided to give Genshin Impact a go, a much more resource-heavy, super demanding Android title, and to my surprise, this actually ran really well as well. I did have to keep the graphics settings locked on the lowest possible levels, unfortunately, but even though I couldn't enjoy the sumptuous feast that is the higher graphics settings, Genshin Impact played really well. The frame rate stayed stable again, an occasional judder here and there, especially once you get stuck into the action. But at no point did I feel like the phone was working against me. And even after wasting quite a bit of time on the Genshins, I found that the phone didn't even begin to get toasty as well, helped along by the energy-efficient MediaTek chipset and the fact that you've got Infinix's 3rd gen vapor chamber coolant tech stashed inside of this thing. However, unlike Infinix's Zero 5G smartphone, which launched earlier in 2022, there's no 5G support here on this bad boy. It's LTE or Wi-Fi all the way. When it comes to the battery, you've got a 4,500 mAh capacity cell crammed inside of this chunky chassis, and so far seems to be doing a solid job. You should be able to get hours and hours of screen on time from a single charge, no worries whatsoever. Again, helped out by the energy efficient MediaTek chipset. And when it does finally run dry, just bung a cable in it and 45 watt fast charging will have you back up to full in not too much time. Sadly, no wireless charging support on here though. So last up, let's have a gander at the camera tech, and it's a triple lens setup here on the back end of the Infinix Zero 20, spearheaded by a 108 megapixel primary shooter. Sadly, this doesn't have optical image stabilization built in. That's only the front-facing camera that has the OIS. And it does use pixel binning to produce a less detailed but brighter image when the conditions are a bit more tested. You do have full HDR support, and you can swap to a high-res 108 meg mode if you want to. And you've got the usual AI scene recognition as well. So for instance, right here, it's recognizing a face and it's swapped you into portrait mode. And here's just a small selection of sample shots that I snapped with the Infinix Zero 20 in the past 24 hours across a range of conditions. As you can see, when we hit more testing, ambient light, things start to get a bit fuzzier, a bit softer. And at any point, you can give this little icon down here a tap and swap to that 13 megapixel ultra wide angle shooter. And you've also got a huge selection of bonus modes to choose from, including the obligatory beauty mode. This includes some slightly disturbing features, frankly, which can slim down your waistline and your face, can also give you slim shoulders, if that's what you're after, and also a plump butt, apparently. Of course, good old Veronica here doesn't have a butt, so good luck with that. You also have a portrait mode, which makes good use of that depth sensor, and a super night mode for when things get really, really dim. And this can help to brighten up a particularly gloomy shot, although don't expect miracles, things will still look a bit fuzzy and a bit pants. For your video shenanigans, you can shoot up to 2K resolution footage at 30 FPS, otherwise Full HD at 30 or 60 FPS. And the results are certainly perfectly respectable for a mid-range mobile, although again the lack of stabilization means you'll have to keep fairly steady while you're shooting, otherwise things will look a bit janky and jerky. The audio pickup's fine, and in more ambient conditions the Infinix can cope as long as the lighting isn't too dim. And you've also got a variety of movie filters you can select from if you swap to the film mode, just to give your video a little bit of extra pizzazz. Oh, bit of drunken trolley shenanigans, that'll be a handy filter for nights out on the quayside. And then finally, around front, yes, you've got that crazy 60 megapixel selfie shooter, which has built-in optical image stabilization. So it certainly seems like Infinix has gone all out for this one. As you can see, you've got full HDR support and everything. You can shoot at the maximum 60 meg pixel resolution as well if you want. Gotta say though, that selfie shooter did seem a little bit perturbed whenever there was quite strong light going on. I did get some saturated shots, certainly when I was out and about. Otherwise, as long as you keep the beauty mode bollocks off so you can get every line and crease and sag and bag in there, you get some really nice, crisp, detailed, realistic looking shots. However, even though you've got that super night mode, don't expect miracles. Once the lighting really starts to drop, then it won't do much to help save a very murky, very gloomy looking shot. And if you want to shoot video with the Infinix Zero 20, you can capture footage at up to 2K resolution, which is what I'm doing right now. So there you have it, my lovelies. That in a crisp little nutshell is the fresh new Infinix Zero 20. Quite an interesting little blow, that's for sure. It would be absolutely fantastic to hear what you guys reckon of it down in the comments below. Please do plug, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech. And have yourselves a really wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everyone. Love you.